Welcome to SIM-PAC Live, where the rubber meets the road. I'm your host, Geoff Matthews, and today we're going to look at the rise of methanol as an energy carrier. In particular, the role it can play in the decarbonisation of the marine transportation sector. Marine transportation is one of the hardest to abate sectors. It's also one of the largest emitters. In fact, if it was a country, it would be the 6th largest emitter globally. So today we have a special guest, Dr. David Lim. David is Vice President of Application Engineering for E1 Marine and is one of the world's leading experts in methanol to hydrogen production. David has a PhD from Washington University and a master's from Stanford University, and for the last 20 years has been involved in hydrogen production and design. Welcome, David. Thank you very much for coming on SIM-PAC Live. I did a podcast a little bit ago, and it was about the export of hydrogen. And at the very end of it, I said, well, I think a lot of the export hydrogen would be constituted into its basic common denominator, which is green ammonia, and exported as green ammonia. And then I was in Australia, and I had somebody say to me, Geoff, if you talk to David Lim, he's the methanol expert, and methanol might be the preferred hydrogen carrier. And so there's two things I want to talk to you tonight about methanol as a hydrogen carrier, but also specifically about the marine sector and your methanol to hydrogen generators, because they seem to me to be game changing, and I'm sure that's why you're involved. And I just would really like to take the viewers through that and sort of those both subjects, and if you intertwine them, we can unravel it as we go.
Sure. Thank you, Geoff. Happy to be in your program. It's very exciting. And this is an exciting time for people like me who have been doing methanol hydrogen generation for almost 2 decades. Yeah, I mean, we totally think that methanol probably, if not the best, is one of the better hydrogen carriers because, I mean, in particular for us doing in the maritime sectors, I mean, the maritime industry is probably one of the biggest emitter in the world. And it constitutes like 3% of the GHG emission. And I think they are still using heavy oil as the principal fuel, which dumps out, besides CO2, there's like PM, there's NOx, SOx, and all kinds of stuff. And I mean, annually, I think there's like gigatons of CO2 equivalent. I mean, that includes everything. Yeah. So we think that, I mean, we've been working on methanol along, and then we look into finding a low carbon fuel that can produce hydrogen. We can talk about why choose low carbon fuel versus others. So methanol, for my 2 decades of experience and my colleagues and my bosses, probably is the best candidate. It is easy to reform, to convert from the source fuel to hydrogen. It's easy. Yeah. It's like, for us, the temperature is like 340 to 100 degrees. If you choose methane, it's 800 to 900 degrees. Yeah. Well, the temperature means a lot of things, but definitely means money. The capex, your OPEX involved. Yeah. So and then when you talk about using more energy, that's also you end up have to burn more energy. The energy has to come from somewhere. So methanol probably is the middle ground, I would say, so to speak. And methanol is easily available most places. I mean, I know in Australia you need to import it, and there's a plant in New Zealand. I think it's Methanex. So, yeah. So it's not a perfect world, but it's available globally. It's available in over 100 ports. China is the biggest producer and consumer.
But David, how much of that is sort of green at the moment, and how much is reformed? I gather Methanex is out of the gas industry and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like hydrogen. I mean, you know.
Fair question. Fair question.
Yeah. It's the same thing. Hydrogen. What are we producing? I don't know, 1 or 2% at the most.
It's all fair. It's all fair. Fair question. I'm happy to talk to you about it. So, most of the hydrogen we get, it comes out from natural gas, so it's not green yet. I mean, in the future it will be. So it will be green via a few processes. One possibility is from electrolysis, like you in Australia, getting it from the sun, getting electricity, making it from water, and then like they do in Europe. It's going to take some time, and we can talk about all the costs involved, because when you have a centralized location to make hydrogen, you need to storage, you need to have transportation, and both of which requires energy and cost. So that's one way to get green hydrogen. Another way to get green hydrogen is, I mean, from my perspective, from biofuel. I mean, for us, is the easiest is to use biomethanol. And you got a question correctly. How much it is in the global production. 90% of methanol is still probably 90% of methanol is still gray or black. There's production facility of biomethanol in Canada, in US, and in Europe. And I think China is also getting into the game also. Biomethanol, I think let me give you a little bit. I mean, maybe I'm trying to sell biomethanol. I know it's going to gain in popularity, but and one of the things, we need to make a start somewhere, David, as you know. And so anyone that's doing something today is it really lights my fires, and is because and I saw something even on LinkedIn last night where somebody was talking about what we do today has a much bigger impact because it reduces emissions today, and those emissions run all the way through to 2050. Adding something at the end, it might be big at the end, but it's actually starting today is the important thing. And also pathways. And I think that companies, and breakthrough companies, and breakthrough people like yourself, and companies like yourself, who are making those pathways and those breakthroughs, they're exciting because they're going to take us to tomorrow. So I'm not trying to climb into you that your methanol's green, because I didn't expect it to be. But what it is that is a possibility. It can be is a pathway for it to become green, and that's the exciting thing. Well, you're absolutely right. And methanol plays a perfect role in the way you are framing it, because we can start using methanol now, using the methanol reformer and fuel cell, and you start using gray methanol. And when you switch, you can switch gradually to green methanol. I mean, of various grades, and it's still the same methanol, the same machine. You're not changing the hardware. The capex you put in is just put in. Stunk, but your OPEX. I mean, you can. I mean, it is a growing movement that switching from gray methanol to greener methanol, and then there's actually conversations going on. I believe in Europe also they're going to do blend meaning that it's like gray methanol is going to mix with a green methanol. So, but standards are still being established, but from a user perspective, you don't feel a difference. The only difference is that the fuel. Or whoever that sell you the fuel, and then the price may vary. And my gut feeling is that the commodity market is going to take care of it. At least that's my gut feeling. Because they want to sell the product. Well, create markets, and then people look to feed those markets, and so let's talk about your methanol to hydrogen generators for marine use. Now, you went down that route because methanol is it's stable at normal temperature. It's
It's a liquid. I'm assuming it's a liquid. It doesn't need compression. Is that correct?
No, not at all.
No compression. And you said it's in 100 ports anyway, and so it's a stable fuel in that regard.
Right.
And I gather from your generators, you push it through water, and even can be salt water, to get the hydrogen out of it, or you push it might be the wrong word. You put it through a process. How do you just describe that process?
Yeah, let me explain it a little bit. Which actually, for us, the methanol we have to mix with water. It's about 1/3, roughly one third by weight, roughly.
Yes.
So then we have a reactor, chemical reactor. We do the classical steam reforming reaction. Then we produce a mixture of gases with high percentage of hydrogen.
Yes.
Then we have a proprietary technology we call a purifier. It's a alloy membrane technology. Basically, separate the pure hydrogen, and then we have all the CO2 and a little bit of water and stuff like that. Then that's basically the trick. I mean, we have a purifier technology, which is made out of alloy, as I mentioned. So in this product, whatever that's come out, we call it waste. We call it raffinate.
Yeah.
That's like heat involved. We recycle that heat, and the reactor basically we call it a thermal-neutral box.
Yeah.
So once energy goes in, not much. I mean, the only thing that needs to go in is methanol plus water, and then hydrogen comes out. And in a way, you can say that roughly speaking, it's almost self-sustaining once you started the process.
Right.
That's how it works. I mean, it's a high-pressure process. It's not very high. It's just between it's about 20 bar from the liquid side until you get hydrogen out. It's low pressure. When you get to a higher end, it's all low pressure.
Right. Okay. And then it's low pressure hydrogen, and then you use that to burn direct or you're pushing that through fuel cells.
Fuel cell. That's why we've been doing our business for past 2 decades is fuel cells. But you can also burn it. So we have been working with many fuel cell companies. I mean, that's kind of my history, working with fuel cell companies like a good friend Ballard. They're in Australia, also in China, everywhere, and also a good friend Cummins Hydrogenics. I mean, they are good friend of mine, and they're everywhere. So that's how we traditionally work with the fuel cell companies. I to be more specific, it's the low temperature PEM fuel cell companies.
Right.
So because they are they have been in the market for the longest time, they have been, in our opinion, is they have been in the curve of cost reduction. They have been mass producing, doing all those kind of things. Yeah. So I think they're the most hopeful. I mean, I'm not disregarding the others, but that from our framework. Another perspective is combustion engine. We can also burn it in combustion engine, and that's not a problem. So because from our perspective, we just make the hydrogen. Work with everyone.
And the combustion engine. While I'd love to, I know Toyota have been, they've actually even raced their V8 internal combustion engine running on hydrogen, but the storage issue is going to be the issue. It may never see the light of the day, even though you would love that to happen. But because you're making it as you go, you don't have that storage issue if you're making it from the methanol. So that's the advantage of. So you take the methanol as your marine fuel. Using the water, you've got a generator, and then you can use the. I'm assuming it would be much more efficient running through a fuel cell, but you could use it for generators, and so therefore, if that because you don't have to transport and store hydrogen, which is difficult, then, how does methanol stack up against, say, ammonia for transportation? I mean, the downsides of ammonia are, we know it's explosive, but do you think that methanol will or can replace the thoughts about green ammonia at the moment?
Yeah, that's a good question, because that's the thing I'm trying to do this year, because to talk about methanol versus ammonia. I have to say, there are applications that ammonia is good for, but methanol, I would say, at least in my opinion, is more versatile, because in terms of toxicity, when you have a field, you need to deal with the handling and then all the crews and all the staff. So I'm not saying that methanol is not toxic. I know there are countries like in India, they're still struggling with how to deal with methanol. But I want to give you an example in China. When I started walking to the China market way in 2009, 2010, they're paranoid with methanol. But now, they know that it's, they don't drink it anymore, put it this way. And they did a good job. They did many studies.
I've got a friend who's been there 35 times, I think, to do aluminium smelting, and he would probably disagree.
But the problem with, the thing is, in many countries, the safety concern of methanol has been diminished, or what would say, educated. The public. Yeah. So but the handling and all those kind of things, there's already established rules, and it's relatively safe. However, when you're dealing with ammonia, it's a totally different story. It's not only, when you mentioned explosive, actually it's considered a toxic material. It's corrosive. And I think one thing important is, when you have a spill, what will happen? For methanol, it's biodegradable. Yeah. But ammonia, you're going to have a disaster, pretty much. I think this is pretty much a fact. In the United States, there were several incidents. It was an ecological disaster. So in maritime business, you really need to think about all these kind of things, because when you have a spill, accidents happen. We need to think about all this. Yeah. So how are you going to deal with it?
So we get oil spills and petroleum spills at the moment, and also petrol, diesel, all the fossil fuels. They're all dangerous, but we've been using them for 125 years, so we've got used to it, and so we've got it still it still happens, but so that was so. How fast does methanol break down in the environment? And I'm assuming the only harm in it is you would get some CO2 release. I would imagine at some stage.
There are a lot of studies done. It's pretty quickly. There are a lot of studies done for there's various concentration of methanol spill into, and how it impacts the
environment,
the ocean, the maritime living creatures. It's probably relatively small. I won't say zero. It's relatively small in comparison with all the chemicals that we consider, like petroleum, ammonia. Ammonia is kind of in the middle ground. Petroleum product is very hazardous. It's very harmful to biological creatures. But methanol probably is one of the safer chemicals. And because you think about it, actually, I want to be careful. I'm not going to say methanol is equivalent to ethanol, but they are similar. In chemistry we call it alcohol, and methanol is generated biologically. If you go to the forest, when the trees fell down and decay, and they generate methanol naturally. Yeah. So nature knows how to deal with methanol. Yeah. So this is they have been well documented and well studied.
Yeah, so let's talk about, you know, my favourite topic, where the rubber meets the road. Your hydrogen generators,
Yes.
you've got them out in the world, people using them, you've got marine transport moving around in them?
Good question. So you see this picture,
Yeah.
the boat here. Oh, can't see it, but you can go to my website.
Yeah.
Hydrogen one probably is the first methanol fuel cell maritime vessel in the world.
Yeah.
So it's still the first one. We plan to get into water early 2024, late 2023. That's the plan. So in the maritime space, it's still going to be the first one. We are also going to have the containerized solution. However, we have been in this business, as I mentioned. I've been in the business for almost 2 decades, and my colleagues have been 3 decades. Yeah. We have been making a lot of inroads in the telecom space. Yes. So way back then, I mean, we are kind of our predecessor is a company called Idatech, U.S.-based company, and we have been making methanol-based fuel cell product for backup power in telecom. A lot of them, actually, since we are in Asia, well, kind of, Asia Pacific, so to speak. Sorry. A lot of them are in Indonesia. A lot of them, I mean, there are some in U.S., but a lot of them are in Indonesia. A lot of them are in Japan. A lot of them, I think there are some of them in Philippines, and a little bit of them in Malaysia. So
these are remote sites, I'm assuming.
Yes, most of them are remote sites, and some of them are in China definitely, and then they are growing business. So that's where we started, 5 to 10 kilowatt backup and prime power system. Yeah. And a few years back, about 5 years ago, we started to apply the technology in heavy-duty truck, and we had a demonstration vehicle in China. Collaborated with the biggest truck company, FAW, in China. Yeah. We ran that truck for I think 3,000 kilometers, close to over 3,000 kilometers over a year. That was during the pandemic time, but still working. Yeah, so and our current version in the maritime space is basically a scale-up version of all that technology. I mean, the principle is still the same. I mean, as I mentioned previously, principle is still the same, and it's just a scaling up exercise. Yeah. And then from maritime space, you have to go through the certification exercise just to make sure that it is as safe as it can be. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's interesting, in Australia and in New Zealand, New Zealand's got a particular problem where it's got a rural sector that produces most of the GDP of the country. We produce far more food than we can consume, so we export it. But a lot of rural sites and a lot of and you know, I look at, and I've said in a speech to the Asia Pacific Energy Leaders Summit that hydrogen had more to deliver the rural sector than almost any other sector, because they can't get cheap electricity out there at the moment. And so, and also here in Australia, of course, they've got a lot of economic activity in the mines, which are a long way away from grid connections and things. And so, you know, having in remote locations, having, you know, those sort of generators to be able to generate and make hydrogen to push through fuel cells is really interesting. It's really interesting, and there are certainly some circular economies that could close too, because the waste sector, you know, I've just built a circular economy map for our conference for SIM-PAC 2024. And, you know, the waste doesn't end up at one stream at the end. It comes out at every stage. Even when you start in the mining and the raw materials and the process, it comes out at every stage. And to get a true circular economy, that waste has to be, in the end, it's got to be used or be organic or composted or something. And so those waste streams, the biomethanol is something that it's going to be part of the solution. It has to be. Has to be. And if you can then use it in remote sites or in sites to even generate electricity on site to do more processing and more things, it's terrific. It's terrific. So, we'd love to see you at SIM-PAC in 2024, Asia Pacific, and I'm sure an interesting tech to look at Australia. But in the meantime, I might have to come. Where have you got your first boat operating? That's in North America, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it is. It'll be in New Orleans.
New Orleans.
Yeah, it'll be in New Orleans. So I'm going there every now and then. Yeah, please do come. I'll let you know when it's officially launched.
Yeah, that'll be great. That'll be great. That's great. Look, thank you, David. Thank you very much for this chat. I think we covered quite a bit. I know a lot more about methanol. I might become a methanol advocate now, rather than just leaving it off the end of my podcast. and good luck with everything. And we might we'll definitely check back in with you when you launch this.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's great to see. As I said, we've got to start today, and we've got to start building those pathways. And you're doing something exciting out there. So I'm grateful to meet you and very glad to interview. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Geoff. Appreciate it.